Just a few days ago, we finally got our first true glimpse at Final Fantasy XV gameplay, already in English format. And let's just say I can't wait to freaking play this game. For those of you who don't know what Final Fantasy XV is and what it means to the industry, let me explain. It is a game announced back at E3 2006, yeah, almost 10 years ago, developed by Square Enix as a part of the Final Fantasy XIII trilogy of games. Originally called Final Fantasy Versus 13, it promised to be an amazing game since many of its developers worked on some of the company's best titles, such as Kingdom Hearts and Crisis Core, as well as the animated movie Advent Children. If you haven't yet played or watched any of those, then go do it. They're some of Square Enix's best work. Now, the problem was that after its announcement back in 2006, news on the game were pretty scarce, to the point where in 2012 the game was unofficially called dead. Thankfully, Square was quick to announce it wasn't, and soon after that we got our first news on the game. But now you may be asking why this game is so important. Why does it need to succeed? Well, it may be one of the last games Square Enix makes as a developer. Square's most recently developed games have been pretty bad. Final Fantasy XII had a great combat system thanks to the use of gambits, and its open world was a breath of fresh air after Final Fantasy X. But its story and characters were too bland and leaned too much on the political, making this game just forgettable. Final Fantasy XIII, the worst in the series so far in my opinion, was astonishingly beautiful, but its world for the most part felt like you were going through a one-way corridor the whole time. Not to mention its combat system, that threw so much out the window that fights could literally be completed by mashing the X button. Final Fantasy XIV launched with some of the worst review scores in recent MMO history, all because its developers focused too much on making the game pretty and not enough on making it functional, much less fun. A mistake they corrected with the game's re-release, A Realm Reborn. All in all, bad decisions from Square's part. And so you can see why Square's image as a developer pretty much went down the sink. But as a publisher it has increasingly become notorious. Some of the most critically acclaimed games of the last generation were published by Square. Games like the excellent Deus Ex Human Revolution or the latest reboot of Tomb Raider. And even the hidden gem that was Sleeping Dogs, to name a few, were all published by Square Enix. And that begs the question, what if Square just decides to stop making games and focuses on publishing? Many fans have already abandoned the company, and due to its financial situation they may just decide to give up game production entirely. The industry would lose the studio that pretty much defined the RPG genre, and that would be quite sad. At least Square's last chance has a lot going for it. Like I already said, many of its developers are veterans on the company, responsible for many of its most critically acclaimed titles. Not only that, but they had more than enough time to properly think things through. I mean, sure, the game might not have been in active development all these years, but people were probably still working on it and thinking about its many aspects. According to the latest gameplay videos, the developers also seem to be doing a lot of things right, gameplay-wise. They're getting rid of the old active time battle system in favor of a true real-time system, in which the player only has to worry about the main character, unlike Kingdom Hearts. They're also bringing the open world back, something we haven't truly seen since Final Fantasy XII. And they're making the experience much less linear, with a lot more to do besides following the main quest, from much earlier in the game than previous FF games. Basically, it's doing everything people have asked for in an FF since the series went mainstream. In the end, the game is everything it needs to succeed. If you look at the bad games I mentioned above, developed by Square, they weren't bad because they had bugs or felt clunky or had bad graphics, quite the contrary. They were bad because many of its gameplay mechanics were badly thought out. The company suffered from a bad case of realism over fun after the merge with Enix, a topic I talked about in my last video. If you have any doubts, look it up. One of the producers of FF13 admitted that the reason they couldn't put more towns in this installment was because it took too much effort to design and model them with the detail they wanted, a feature that used to be a staple of the franchise, basically forcing the player to only buy items from save points. I mean, really? How is that acceptable? Anyway, I made my point. I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one that wants this game to succeed. Everything we've seen so far looks very promising, with complex systems and well thought out mechanics. As long as Square doesn't decide to make another bad call and include lightning in some form to this game, inside pun there, the game should be fine. Hell, it may very well be the next Final Fantasy VII. We can only hope. I hope you enjoyed this little rant. Any comments or suggestions about this video, leave them in the comments. Leave a like and share this video with your game-savvy friends to help me grow the channel. It would really help me a lot. And as always, subscribe for future videos.